I'd like Chad and Jim to comment on this. Chad?
Clearly for DuPont, before we were going to locate a new site, we had a number of things we checked. That list is longer today. We're paying much more attention to the geography. We're assuming that climate change is real, and we're going to have more of these experiences than we had before. And so, I think also as you look at the crowding of the population in certain areas, indeed it's a much longer checklist. But I think it all comes back to the fundamental resilience of your systems. There's some data in the report that talks about the number of companies that go bankrupt if they lose their major data center for 10 days or more. I think the number is like 93%, astounding number. And so I think it all comes back to fundamentally strong, resilient systems that can weather almost any storm, and the storm is in quotes there.
Back of the room, Howard, turn.
I'm Howard Charney, and I work for Cisco Systems. Can you mathematically relate? Can you quantitatively relate? Can you relate in science expenditures on risk reduction to an increase in whatever metric you would use that you would actually be able to determine thereafter resource allocations? Because then we could stack rank. We could say, we should spend money on this project, or we should spend money on the development of this other new technology, which maximizes profits. And you'd hope that the ones that had to do with resilience would also get some measure of attention.
It's an excellent question, and I can't give you a lot of concrete information. I'll give a couple of examples, but as you pointed out, profit is not our goal in a university, obviously. Profit is not our goal. Our goal is to produce people for the next generation workforce, and it's a little different than trying to make money, because in the end of the day, we don't make money. We do in some things, but that's not the relevant issue in terms of what we do. It's what we try to do is build confidence, and we try to build confidence in the public in virtually everything we do. Confidence that we know how to manage our money appropriately. And one has to only look today, and you've seen recently that Antioch College is going away. It's gone down because it's financially lost its resources, and it was borrowing on its regional campuses to pay for the local original campus. That's gone away. We have to have the public understand that there's confidence in what we do. We have to keep our bond rating high so that we can continue to borrow, and so that people understand that we can borrow responsibly. Those are the kinds of things we do. If you want to look at a real number, one of the real numbers we can look at is how we manage health care benefits for our population that we serve in terms of the faculty primarily and staff for the university. And we've gone to a new system where we can reduce every year a significant amount of what would be an increase by promoting wellness as opposed to promoting simply using the resources that are available. And we have a new system called Your Plan for Health, which is, again, dealing with the person in improving the wellness. It's hard to think of how you actually quantify things within a university. We spend a lot of money to make sure that our campus is safe. We spend a lot of money in terms of all of our large events. You think about the football game where we gather 105,000 people, or commencement where we gather 60,000 people, and the kinds of things you have to put in place. But that, paying for that, mitigating that risk is, I don't know how you look at it in terms of payback financially, other than you continue to get large numbers of students who want to come to the university. You continue to get investments in our endowment in terms of annual giving. But those aren't one-to-one correlations. You can't say because you did this, this is a payback. But I think it's the overall confidence that you generate by doing things right and protecting both your resources and your people. And I look at resources both as physical and human capital. So maybe there are other people that, maybe Jared just stepped out, but maybe there are others from universities who can think of one-on-one real things. But the healthcare one's the one that comes to mind that you can actually quantify, and it's not making money, it's actually reducing what would be expenditure.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm Louis Branscombe, former officer of IBM and a director of Mobil Corporation and General Foods, but now an emeritus professor. My question really is a little like the one from Cisco, and it it stems from the fact that almost all the discussion so far sounds like it's based on a business that has optimized its business design and structure and then ask itself, how can we be sure that we could respond well or reduce the likelihood of unlikely but serious risks of one kind or another. My question has to do with risk aggregation and the trade-off then that you would have to make between deciding to be a little less efficient than you could be if you really believe in economies of scale as a good way to make profit. I sometimes am a bit skeptical about how often scale economy quests actually do deliver more profit. Nevertheless, that's widely believed. And I'll give you 3 examples very quickly. Number 1, Airbus 380 holds 800 economy passengers. Number 2, chicken packing factory in Texas that packages 14.3 million chickens a week and ships them out to our grocery stores. Number 3, Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines is under contract for $1.2 billion to build a cruise boat that holds 6,400 passengers. So my concern is that maybe those companies ought to think about whether that's a good way to aggregate the risk at that level. On the other hand, I have to respect the argument that they surely make that they will be more profitable with that larger aggregation of capability than it would be otherwise. How is that trade-off going to be made in the business community?
So let me start on that one if I could. Again, our report stresses that it's the fundamental robustness of your base processes are your best defense. It's a great example from Walmart, but it's fundamentally systems that work, systems that are backed up, quality, customer support, well-trained people are the best place you can invest your money because it pays off today and it will help you in that event that you cannot predict exactly what's going to happen. But I think today as we look at a new set of hazards we didn't have before. We weren't thinking about terrorism 15 years ago. We weren't thinking about some of the climate change impacts. You go through some very fundamental calculations. At DuPont, we had a plant that was under 7 feet of water after Katrina. There's now a 20-foot wall around that plant. You know, we always knew the risk was there. We did the calculation and we said, we just can't put these people through this again. We can't put this community through this again. We're going to build that wall. Now, we hope we never use the wall. But we can't put a 20-foot wall around every plant. So I think there are some decisions you have to make.
You know, there's a great concern in this country about perhaps too much regulation, the government coming in, and recent article in Business Week that says, in spite of all the concern about Sarbanes-Oxley, now many investors all over the world are saying, we like it because it shows we have the best higher standards once we get the processes in place. IPOs now are coming back to the U.S. But here's the question. With all the filings and things we have to do with the SEC, at some point, do you think that there should be any value, any attention on enterprise resilience in terms of the government-private sector partnership to build the best-in-class assessment of capabilities? Or is that something that is too pushing the envelope on the regulatory side?
Are there some specific actions that government could be or the public sector could be the catalyst to drive change here? Less clear to me because the marketplace is such an important regulator, and the marketplace, I think, will in fact reward companies who become more risk intelligent, companies that become better at managing uncertainty, companies that become better at making these trade-offs between risk and reward. And if you move in the direction of becoming completely risk averse, others will actually outperform you, and the marketplace will reward them. And so I think the marketplace will be the source of finding that right balance. And there will be times when the government needs to step in and become the catalyst to drive that change.
Thank you.
And there was a requirement a few years ago that every site in the U.S. had to publish for the public to see a worst-case scenario, the worst thing that could happen if A, B, C, all okay. Well, that's just like a roadmap. Okay? This is the only country in the world where we had to do that. We do business in 70 countries. Well, that's been changed today. We've rethought that. So I would just say anything that the government gets in, they should think about maybe some unintended consequences from what seems like a good act.
Well, on that note, I want to thank our panelists and for a wonderful discussion.